We'll have a look in a bit more detail now about how to approach an unseen poetry question. So if you haven't already, just have a quick look at the What is an Unseen Question lesson that I did earlier in this course. So unseen poetry is one type of unseen exam or unseen exam question that you might get. So today's lesson is just about kind of going through how to approach that in the exam and trying to give you a sort of formula, like a bulletproof formula for success, really, I guess. So essentially, there's a 7-step process that I've come up with that will definitely make your grades so much better and make you a lot less stressed and panicky generally about this type of exam. So let's have a look now in a bit more detail at this process. So when you're given an unseen poetry question, before you read the poem, you really want to read the question. This is kind of the same for almost every exam that you do. There's no point reading a chunk of text if you don't actually know what you're supposed to be looking for. So the question is the key to a good answer, understanding and staying focused on that question. So the first thing we do is we underline keywords of the question and explore them. So by explore, what I mean is pick them apart, make sure you fully understand them, make sure you fully understand what the question is asking you to do in terms of looking at the poem. So underline and explore the keywords of the question. So step 2 then, once you've understood the question and the keywords, is to read the poem through and write down your general impressions. So you do a kind of quick, sort of, not exactly a skim read, but you just sort of read through, and as you're going through, write down thoughts and feelings. So whatever kind of pops into your head, but things that are related to the question, not just random stuff that isn't going to be relevant. You also want to really try and get to grips with the underlying themes of the poem. So themes are like big ideas that a text explores, that kind of literature sort of explores commonly across text and across time. So love or war or death or happiness, anything that's a kind of really big idea that's difficult to sort of pin down and properly describe or properly get to the bottom of. That's a theme. So every piece of literature, including every poem, deals with themes and some kinds of thematic concepts, so thematic ideas. Personal to the writer will be a thematic statement on those ideas. So the statement is like the writer's personal message about that idea. So if it explores the theme of love, what is that writer's personal message on love, for example? Are they really critical of love and they think it's pointless or silly? Or do they think that love is the most beautiful thing in the world? Or do they think that love is a complex emotion that has many sides to it? What is the kind of ultimate message about love that the writer is sending to you through the poem? So that's your thematic statement. So it's important to understand themes, but it's even more important to understand the messages behind those themes, those thematic statements. So you want to try and get a feeling for that the first time that you read through. The second time you read through, you want to underline relevant sections of the poem, always relating to the focus of your question. So don't underline anything that is a language feature unless that language feature actually relates to your focus. Sometimes people get so caught up on finding a metaphor or finding a simile that they kind of lose sight of the question. Anything that isn't directly answering your question is going to lose you marks. So make sure that you underline anything relevant to the question and nothing else. After you've underlined, start annotating. So annotating is where you kind of make your own notes and you put your own thoughts and ideas around what you've underlined. At that point, you can start jotting down language features or structural features. You can jot down any ideas or pieces of analysis in your own mind that relate to the question. You have to stay focused on that question. So with annotation and analysis, basically you're trying to answer how and why what you've underlined relates to the question. So every time you've underlined something, try and make a note about how and why it relates to the question. Once you've done all that and your poem is fully annotated, you structure your ideas into a plan. So you have an intro, you have middle paragraphs. In your intro, you develop a thesis, which is your overall point, your overall answer to that question, like a one-sentence response to your question. Your thesis should contain what we think, feel, or realise as an audience about the focus of the question, about the idea of the question. And finally, you start writing. So this actually, even though there's a lot of steps, you don't want it to take you too long, but don't worry if that kind of takes longer than expected at the beginning. The more that you practice these steps, the quicker you get, and the kind of more sensitive you get to the ideas of poems and the way that writers create ideas in their poems. So you will be quite slow at first, but you just have to push through that and keep going and speed up your steps 1 to 5 kind of process. So step 6, write, a simple one, but it does take much longer than steps 1 to 5. You want to leave yourself editing time at the end, so it's really important to read back over what you've written, especially if you're in an exam panic. You might have just accidentally written the wrong word or not explained yourself properly or punctuated wrong, something like that. So definitely give yourself a couple of minutes minimum to just skim through your answer and make sure it all makes sense and it flows well, and just edit a little bit if it's not flowing properly at that point. So that's my kind of 7-step process for unseen poems. Hopefully that's been useful for you, and hopefully you'll enjoy sort of applying that, or at least not feel so stressed next time you do an unseen question, now that you've got these kind of guidelines and these rules to help you through it all. Thanks for listening.